The arrivals terminal hummed like a restless tide, thousands of steps, murmurs, blinking boards, the scent of stale coffee and jet fuel. People collided, reunited, wept into necks, waved signs. She stood still in the middle of it all, a pale thread in the blur, clutching a small blue suitcase that trembled slightly in her grip. Her scarf, red, the color of warnings, hung loose around her neck, tugged by the artificial wind of automatic doors. Eyes wide, but silent. Watching. She had stopped mid-step when she saw the girl. A child, maybe 8. Alone. Sitting cross-legged near gate 3 with a paper crane in her lap. No adults, no bags, no sound. Just that delicate origami bird held carefully in her tiny palms, wings lifted like it might fly off if she exhaled too hard. The woman stared. Something about the stillness in the girl's posture hit her in the chest, like a memory slamming into the present. The handle of her suitcase creaked as her knuckles whitened. Her phone vibrated again. The 4th message. She didn't look. Not yet. Her scarf fluttered off her shoulder, brushing against the arm of a man rushing by. He didn't notice. No one noticed. The overhead speaker called for final boarding. Somewhere, a baby cried. Someone laughed too loud. But she stayed rooted. The girl with the crane tilted her head and looked up at her. For a brief moment, time collapsed. A flash, bare feet on cold kitchen tile. The hiss of the kettle. A scream that wasn't hers, not really, but had lived in her throat ever since. The phone buzzed again. This time, she looked. Just a name on the screen. No message. Her thumb hovered. There was screaming coming from your house, the neighbor said. She hadn't been home. 2 weeks out of state. A quiet Airbnb with unfamiliar soaps and no mirrors. No one knew where. No one was supposed to. And still. Her eyes stung. She glanced back toward gate 3. The girl was gone. Only the paper crane remained, folded wings sagging from someone's careless step. Gone. The scarf slipped fully from her neck, drifted to the floor like a fallen flag. She didn't pick it up. Couldn't. A security guard made eye contact with her briefly, then looked away, something unsure in his expression. She took a step forward, then stopped. Her hand went to her wrist. The watch was cracked. Still ticking. Still lying. Her voice, dry in her own ears, I need to get home. But the sentence didn't reach anyone. Just then, her phone buzzed one more time. A new message, just a few words. You left the door open. Her lips parted. But no sound came. She turned, eyes sweeping the crowd, searching for something. Someone. A gust of wind pushed through the terminal doors. The scarf lay still. She walked slowly through the terminal, the blue suitcase trailing behind her like an old dog. One wheel thumped, stubborn and uneven, and the sound grated against the hollow inside her chest. Her scarf was gone now, left behind, just like the text said she had left the door open. She hadn't. At least, she didn't think she had. Ahead, a woman ran toward a man in uniform and folded into his arms, sobbing. A little boy tugged on his sleeve, whispering something into his neck. The soldier smiled and scooped him up. She looked away. The suitcase tugged again, and her grip slipped for a moment. The handle jolted her palm and she remembered, don't lose this one, okay? Her father's voice. He'd given her the bag when she was 14, patched up from some old job he'd had in Toledo. The zipper still jammed halfway, and the lining smelled faintly of the cedar closet from their childhood home, the one with the missing floorboard where she used to hide her mother's letters. She didn't have the letters anymore. Just the bag. And rent was late again. The thought slid in sideways, unwelcome but familiar. She'd put her last 100 on that bus ticket. She didn't even know if the water would still be on when she got back. Still, she moved forward, eyes scanning the crowd for no one in particular. A man across the corridor stood leaning against a pillar, hands in the pockets of a dark coat. He wasn't watching her, not exactly. But he hadn't looked away either. Not in a threatening way. Not curious. More like, he recognized something. She flinched from the thought. Kept walking. At baggage claim, she found a spot near the window and sat on her suitcase. It sagged a little beneath her. The glass was cold against her back, and the night outside looked silvered, streetlights fractured in wet concrete. A girl across from her munched potato chips while her mother typed furiously on her phone. A man cradled a golden retriever in his lap like a child. An elderly couple held hands and dozed off, their foreheads touching lightly. And her? She breathed in. Then again. It wasn't that she wanted to cry. She just couldn't remember the last time she'd been touched without flinching. Someone stepped into her peripheral vision. She looked up, it was the man from earlier. The coat. The silence. He didn't speak. Didn't sit. Just looked at her suitcase, then at her face. His gaze paused there, like he might say something. But didn't. Her phone buzzed in her coat pocket again. She ignored it. Instead, she asked, her voice barely above a breath, "Do you ever forget what your home feels like?" He blinked. Then, something flickered behind his eyes. A memory, maybe. A wound. But the only answer he gave was a slow, uncertain smile. And still, he didn't walk away. She stood, hesitated. The suitcase wobbled behind her as she turned to leave, but she didn't. Rain tapped the terminal windows, slow at first, like cautious fingers. Then harder, steady, relentless. The sound filled the space where her thoughts had been, muffling the buzz of conversations, the crackle of intercoms. She hadn't moved. Neither had he. She studied him out of the corner of her eye. His coat was too thin for the season. Shoes scuffed, the soles beginning to peel. Hands in his pockets, but not with the comfort of someone who had time. More like someone who had nothing else to hold. And when he shifted slightly, something slipped from the corner of his wallet, just visible before he tucked it back. A photograph. Torn at the edges. 2 children. A woman's arm across their shoulders, though her face was missing from the frame. She felt something shift inside her. A quiet recognition. She almost said, "Me too." But didn't. Outside, thunder rumbled, low, distant. Not quite here yet, but close enough to be heard. "I should go," she said finally. The words tasted like metal. He nodded, once. Still that silence between them. But it wasn't empty. It was full of things not said, things too heavy for strangers to carry, and still. "Where to?" he asked. She didn't answer. Not because she didn't want to, but because she didn't know anymore. He didn't push. Just looked out at the rain, the way someone does when they've watched a lot of things leave. And she saw it then, that same hollow shape she carried, mirrored in his eyes. Not the same story. But the same grief. Her phone buzzed again. It was her sister this time. 3 words, "The police came." A sharp ache bloomed in her ribs. She clutched the suitcase handle. The zipper had come undone an inch. She pressed it closed with her thumb like sealing a wound. "Is it bad?" he asked quietly. She swallowed. "I think it's just true." He looked at her then, really looked. Not with pity, but something closer to understanding. Like he knew what it was to lose something long before it ever left. Outside, headlights swam through the wet glass. The loudspeaker called for boarding again, muffled and distant. She stepped away. He didn't follow. But just before she turned, he spoke, soft, barely audible. "You don't have to carry everything alone." And there it was. The thing she had wanted someone to say for years. She froze. The suitcase tilted. Her breath caught. Her feet said go. Her chest said stay. Was this fate, or someone reading her loneliness like a script? She turned halfway back toward him, eyes searching. He offered no more words. Just stood there, drenched in quiet, holding the weight of a name he hadn't yet given. The rain kept falling. And she didn't move. She turned. This time, really turned, to leave. The weight of the suitcase behind her dragged like an anchor, but she didn't stop. Not until she was halfway down the corridor, feet fast and uneven, heart climbing into her throat like it wanted out. "Don't look back." She told herself that like a command. Like a lifeline. But at the end of the hallway, just before the exit doors, something made her stop. Not a sound. Not a voice. Just the red scarf. It was in his hands. He'd picked it up. He'd kept it. Now it lay, draped quietly across his palms, soft, crumpled, rain-damp. He wasn't waving it or calling out. Just standing there, holding it like something fragile. Something not his. She blinked hard. The suitcase tipped again. She let it fall this time. Someone behind her sked under their breath, walked wide around her, as if sorrow might be contagious. A child asked her mother, "Why is that girl crying?" The mother hushed her quickly, pulled her along. She didn't know she was crying. Not until her legs folded beneath her onto the bench near the wall and her breath started coming in shallow gasps. Not loud. Just quiet. Embarrassing. Her hands trembled like loose branches. She remembered her father again, not as he was, but as she needed him to be, steady hands on her shoulders, voice low. "Some people carry more than just bags, sweetheart, they carry silence. Be gentle with them." She'd thought he meant her mother. Now she wasn't sure. Across the floor, the man hadn't moved. But he wasn't holding the scarf anymore. He'd placed it on the bench beside him. Not tossed. Placed. As if to say, "You dropped something. Not mine. Still yours." A janitor passed between them, pushing a cart. His eyes landed briefly on her suitcase splayed open with a pair of socks dangling out, on her puffy face and clenched fists. He looked away with that same practiced indifference, the kind people wear when they've seen too much to ask questions anymore. She stood. Wiped her face with her sleeve. Something inside her itched to run. Not toward him. Not away from him either. Just somewhere with no reflection. She took a step forward. Then another. The suitcase made no sound now, its broken will catching gently on the floor. As she passed the bench where the scarf lay, she stopped. For a second, just one breath's length, her hand hovered above the red fabric. But she didn't take it. She turned to him, eyes searching again, looking for something definite, something clean in all this murk. All she got was his face. Still. Waiting. Maybe hoping. Maybe not. She whispered, "I don't know who I am when I'm not running." His expression didn't change. But something in him softened, barely. "I'll wait right here," he said. She blinked at him, half a breath from crumbling. Then she turned and walked into the rain. The rain had softened into mist by the time she reached the taxi stand. Her fingers curled tightly around her phone, knuckles white, heart louder than the traffic. The screen still showed her sister's last message: "The police came." She hadn't replied. Couldn't. The scarf clung to her now, somehow. She didn't remember picking it up again, but there it was, wrapped around her wrist like a tether. Her phone buzzed, this time a different name. From HR, Grant and Solis Foundation. Subject: interview rescheduled. Dear Ms. Reyes, your interview has been moved to 4 p.m. today. Mr. Solis will be present. Her breath caught. Solis. She looked up, eyes stinging. The man in the terminal. The coat. The silence. The scarf, held like something sacred. She stared at the email again. The same foundation she'd applied to last month. Desperation had driven her to it, a non-profit known for helping women out of impossible places. A miracle job. She thought she'd never hear back. Her stomach dropped. He wasn't just someone with sad eyes and a quiet mouth. He was the owner. She nearly laughed. It came out sharp, breathless. Her knees went soft. What had she said to him? That she didn't know who she was when she wasn't running? That she thought she left the door open? She felt her face flush, hot and cold all at once. And then, another memory slid into place like a final piece. That photo. The one in his wallet. 2 children, and a missing mother. Some people carry more than just bags, they carry silence. His silence wasn't just habit. It was armor. Grief-shaped. Daughter-shaped. And suddenly, the red scarf wasn't just something she had lost. It was something she had returned. She clutched it tighter. Her legs started moving before her mind agreed. Back through the sliding doors, past the tired travelers and flickering monitors, through the hum of voices and dragging feet. She didn't know what she would say when she found him. But he was gone. The bench was empty. Only the faint outline of where he'd sat remained, like a ghost of warmth in the cold metal. She looked around wildly, heart thudding. Then, a woman in a navy blazer approached her with a clipboard. "Ms. Reyes?" She blinked. Nodded. The woman smiled, not unkindly. "Mr. Solis is ready for you now. This way." Her mouth went dry. Now? Yes. He requested it be today. Requested her. She hesitated, body tense, throat thick. Every part of her screamed to run. But her feet didn't move. Instead, she let herself be led. Down a hallway. Up a flight of glass stairs. To a polished door with his name on the wall beside it. She stood there, hand hovering. No going back now. Inside this room waited the truth, or something close enough to break her open. She inhaled. And stepped in. The office was quiet. Too quiet. The kind that hums with old memories and things never said aloud. She stepped inside. The carpet muffled her footsteps, but the silence pressed against her anyway, thick as fog. The walls were lined with books, the kind with spines too clean to have been touched lately. A rain-streaked window framed the city below, gray, unbothered. He stood by the window, back to her, hands clasped behind him. The red scarf lay folded on the desk. Clean now. Smoothed out. Waiting. She didn't speak. Neither did he. Finally, he turned. No smile. Just eyes heavy with knowing. You came, he said. She nodded, throat tight. You asked me to. He studied her, slowly, as if her face was a puzzle with one missing piece. Then he gestured toward the chair across from his. Please. Saturday, I remember, he began softly, the last time I saw my daughter, she was standing at an airport window, holding a paper crane. Said she didn't know where home was anymore. I didn't know how to answer. Her breath caught. He looked down. You remind me of her. Silence. Not the flattering kind. The aching kind. I didn't bring you here for a job, he continued. You'll get it if you want it. But this was something else. She waited, heartbreaking with every second. You said, I don't know who I am when I'm not running, he said. My daughter used to say that, too. Every time she left, every time she came back. Her hands tightened in her lap. And did she ever stop? He shook his head. No, he whispered. She just stopped coming back. The room trembled a little then, as if the past had opened its eyes. She reached for the scarf without thinking, hands moving slow. I thought I lost this. You didn't, he said. You left it. That's different. She nodded, folding it carefully. Then, instead of taking it, she placed it back on the desk. A gesture small, but deliberate. I think, she said, voice trembling, I don't want to run anymore. Even if I have nowhere to be. He closed his eyes for a moment. Then opened them. Thank you. Not stay. Not come back. Just thank you. She stood. And in that moment, something inside her let go, not of pain, but of the need to keep outrunning it. I don't want the job, she said. Not yet. His eyes lifted. Surprised, maybe. But not disappointed. She smiled, faintly. I think I need to build something first. Of my own. Even if it's just enough to leave behind. He nodded. She turned to go. At the doorway, she glanced back once, saw him pick up the red scarf and hold it close, eyes shut, as if touching a ghost. Outside, the airport bustled again. But this time, she was the one watching. Still. Breathing. And somewhere behind her, a child whispered, There's screaming coming from your house. But now, she could finally say, I'm going home. Not every stranger you help is meant to stay, but some leave you changed forever. She stepped out of the building and into the soft hush of dusk. The rain had ended, leaving the pavement glossy with light, like the world had been rinsed and left out to dry. Her suitcase rolled smoother now, the broken wheel somehow quieter, less insistent. She didn't rush. There was no train to catch. No one waiting. But this time, the silence didn't feel like absence, it felt like breath. The street was nearly empty. She passed a florist closing for the night, a barista wiping down windows, a child asleep on his father's shoulder. She watched them gently. Soft eyes. No envy. Just witness. By the time she reached her apartment, the sky was the color of old denim. She unlocked the door. No flickering lights. No screaming neighbors. Just the hollow, familiar sigh of a space remembering her. Inside, she placed the suitcase at the edge of her bed and opened it slowly. The clothes smelled like airports and rain, but she didn't mind. At the bottom of the bag, tucked between a notebook and an old receipt, lay the red scarf. She held it, not tightly. Just enough. The fabric still held the scent of someone else's cologne, faint, fading. She didn't cry. Didn't smile. She folded it gently and placed it inside the drawer by the window, under a pool of soft lamplight. Not as a keepsake. Not as a wound. Just as something once carried. She sat for a long time, staring at the drawer. A line echoed in her mind, something she couldn't quite place at first. Then it surfaced, clear and clean. Sometimes love is not romance, it's recognition. She didn't know if he'd ever say her name again. Or if she'd say his. Didn't know if they would cross paths someday, in some unexpected corner of the world, older, changed, quiet again. Maybe not. Maybe once was enough. She lit a candle from the back of her cupboard, one she'd been saving. Not for any reason. Just saving. She watched the flame catch. The tiny flicker rising like a voice that finally decided to speak. Later that night, she wrote something in the margin of her notebook. Not a full journal entry. Just a line. You can't always tell when a moment is the one that changes you. It never asks permission. She left the notebook open. Let the wind from the cracked window flutter the page. And she slept without running. No stranger waiting outside. No suitcase beside her bed. No emergency in her throat. The red scarf remained in the drawer, beneath the soft light. Not forgotten. Just quiet. Sometimes, all a person leaves behind is a silence that knows your name. And sometimes, that's enough. She didn't dream of him. But she woke with the feeling that she'd been seen. Some endings don't echo like door slams. Some leave behind a single open window, and the question, was that goodbye, or the beginning of everything else?